communication department Zoomtorial. I was asked to put together this Zoom in some ways because AI is up and coming. So, of course, people have been talking about AI, artificial intelligence, for years, for decades, well back into the 60s. People discussing, AI in terms of sci-fi and what it could do. And my brother works in AI for the government. I'm not allowed to know what he does. It's really cool. But we're going to talk tonight about generative AI, which is on the forefront of helping communication departments and communication individuals work and refine their work to make it something better and bring it up to the next level. So we're going to talk about some different aspects of AI tonight, some pros and cons of AI, what we call the promises and pitfalls, which is a phrase that I stole from somebody who was on the virtual legislative fly-in last week, was talking about the promises and pitfalls of broadband. And I was like, well, that's a great little phrase right there. So I guess my first question, and tonight's going to be audience participation. Anytime you have a question, want to see something, feel free to ask questions, as always. But my first question is, when I talk to you about AI that's being used in our contemporary modern lives, what do you guys think of?
Artificial insemination.
That's coming from the ag sphere.
Yes, there's no cows here tonight.
There are no cows here tonight.
I thought that too.
Every time I hear AI, my brain doesn't go artificial intelligence, it goes artificial insemination.
So from artificial intelligence standpoint, what are the ways that we interact with AI every day? I'm going to guess.
For me, when I need to write something up and I don't feel super eloquent, I go into Canva and click the magic right and go sprinkle fairy dust on this and make me sound better.
Yes. That's a great way. For me, one form of AI is Alexa. So your Alexa, your Siri, your Google Assist, those are all ways that we interact with AI and might not think about it.
When I think of AI, I think of like meal planning.
Oh.
Because you can just put into one of the things, what foods you generally eat and how many meals you want or whatever, and it'll make you out a whole meal plan for weeks.
Oh, I love that. I'll have to, please drop that in the chat for us because I want to play with that later. I have one that I also use called Open Workout, where I put in the gym equipment that I have available for me at my home if I want to do an at-home workout, the amount of time I want to spend, and then it will generate a workout for me. And I can say, like, I don't want to jump today. I don't want to be getting up and down off the floor today. I can do those kind of parameters, and it will put together a quick, I usually do a 20 to 30-minute workout. Those are different ways that we can interact with artificial intelligence that we don't even think about it. So generative AI are online programs, and Carolyn brought one up as far as Canva's Magic, right? That can be used to create new content, text, images, video, audio, hypertext code. So the very language of the internet can be generated through AI these days. It's all based on machine learning. And we're going to talk tonight about two of the most well-known, or two of the most used right now, which are ChatGPT and DALL-E, which is DALL-E, based on Salvador Dali and Wall-E, the robot from Pixar, together become DALL-E, which can be used to create generative art. So there was a study in 2022 by a group called McKinsey that showed that AI adoption has more than doubled over the 5 previous years since 2022. Now, what happened in 2022, though, is when the current version of ChatGPT was released in about October, November of 2022. And so I can pretty much guarantee that it has probably doubled again since 2022. For those that don't know ChatGPT, we're going to jump in here and I'm going to show you guys some prompts and some ways to use it. here in a little bit. But there are some pitfalls that we'll talk about with all sorts of generative AI. And one of those is, how many times have you asked Google or Siri or Alexa a question and it has totally misunderstood what you meant? It happens to me on a regular basis where I'll say, hey, Alexa, give me blah, blah, blah. And it will be like, well, I think you mean blah, blah, blah. And I'm just doesn't line up. So one of the first things that we'll talk about, and that I'm going to say, is that to use artificial intelligence to the best of its ability is to be as specific as possible when giving it prompts. So everything that you can create online is going to be prompt based, where you type something in to say, I would like you to give me this, and it will come back with its answer. The more specific you are in your ask, the better your answer will be. That doesn't mean that you might not tweak it some more and get more in depth with it, but it is a better starting point to try to know exactly what you're looking for before you get too deep. Some other ways that, while we are focused on content creation tonight, as far as AI, largely for marketing the Grange or, in writing articles, I will admit I've used AI to help start some patrons chain articles or some Good Day articles. I know Betsy, when she was president, with Sean, who was our legislative assistant at the time, put together a whole AI ChatGPT written article about precision agriculture. And it was just a different way to show what these things can do, because they're meant to look like humans wrote what is out there. So while we are focused on content creation tonight, there are some other forms of AI that can be used in marketing and fundraising. For example, there can be data analytics. There's some artificial intelligence for data analytics, for customer personalization. How many of you have received the emails that say, hi, we see you left something in your cart? Or, hi, we see that you bought that shirt, so we really think you'd like these pants that go with it. Or, we know that you have a habit of buying shoes around this time of year. Here are some really new styles of shoes that you might be interested in tonight. That's all largely driven by AI for companies these days, of garnering your information and knowing what your habits are, and then feeding them back to you for better results. That's also true for advertising online. There's not some person who is watching your habits and seeing what websites you visit. I literally 15 minutes ago placed an order through Rada Cutlery, and I already have Rada ads popping up on my Facebook. I did the order on my computer. I hadn't said the words out loud, and my Instagram had a Rada ad within minutes, as I was scrolling while doing chores tonight. That's also artificial intelligence driven, because it's gathering your data and giving it back to you. We'll also talk tonight about some marketing and markup and editing. That is one of my favorite ways to use AI in my everyday life right now. And then there's also AI that can do full websites for you or optimize your website pages. I don't know a lot about that. Web's not my sphere, but search engine optimization can be largely artificial intelligence driven these days. So if you want your website to be the first thing that Google brings up, then there are AI tools that you can install on your website to help drive you to the top of the charts. Okay, what's been dropped here in chats? Samantha, I've used AI to start in resolution writing. Same with Katie. I also have done that. I'll show, I think I still have the example in my ChatGPT. My one problem is it gave me about 16 whereases, which were not necessary, but we'll get there. So tonight we're going to start with ChatGPT. For those that don't know, it's a text-based artificial intelligence tool. The current version was released in November of 2022, and over 1 million people used it in its first 5 days of existence. So that's really cool. I will admit I was one of those people, and I was using it to do things like write me a script of the West Wing as if the Muppets were in it. Random things to see what it was capable of doing and to see what 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 did it know. Um, it claims that it produces or that it can produce high level computer code, so it can write computer programs. One person online gave it a solid A minus when it came to writing a college level essay. Um, and it can also write poems, jokes, advertisements, pretty much anything you ask it to write and give you back in the written form. It's not great at things like giving you a synopsis of an article because it can't read directly what's on the internet. It's not great at math, I've learned. It won't solve an algebraic equation for you, so don't just plug some numbers in and hope that it gives you anything back. But it is really good at mimicking the human voice. When ChatGPT was launched, it was given 45 terabytes of text data. So 45 terabytes in the mind's eye means nothing. But roughly, based on estimates, it's roughly 1/4 of the entire Library of Congress was fed into ChatGPT to give it its starting point. So what it does and what machine learning does is that it will scour all of these things and it will learn what's been written and what has happened, and it will try to pull it all together into something that makes sense for it. So one of the pitfalls then is that sometimes it gives you information that's not totally correct. Last summer, there was a case in New York where 2 lawyers were sanctioned for citing fake cases in their brief. And it's because they asked ChatGPT to write their summary and their brief. And the judge caught that they were citing cases that didn't exist. And it's because ChatGPT wrote what it thought was, ooh, this is really smart. That's what I imagine ChatGPT sounds like in my head. But it gathered these things and wrote what it thought looked like something real. So one of the things that we have to be aware of if we're using these things is always double checking the claims and facts that it gives us. So give me a second here. I'm going to bring up ChatGPT.
Hey, Phil, while you're bringing it up, I have a question. When
Sure.
you use that, if I had an account and I was using it, does it get to know me?
Yes. So you can give it you things. You can talk about yourself and feed it information about yourself. One of the articles that I was reading last week talked about these 2 authors decided that they wanted to use ChatGPT to give them recipes for a Thanksgiving dinner. And what it learned is that ChatGPT does not write recipes well. Because again, it writes what it thinks looks like a recipe. But what they did ahead of time was they said, I like using Indian flavors. I like cooking with garam masala. I like using chai and these things. And then after it talked to ChatGPT and kind of fed it this information, it then said, will you write me a Thanksgiving dinner recipe or Thanksgiving dinner plan? And one of the things that it fed it was a masala chai based pumpkin pie based just on what it had told them ahead of time. So through your account, yes, ChatGPT can learn who you are.
What about your writing though? Like,
I don't know if it can learn your specific
can you
style.
say make it more plain or make it more
Yeah,
flowery or those sorts of things?
yeah. Let me show you. Let's do some examples here, and we'll play with some things. So ChatGPT is chat.openai.com. The things that I have here on the left of the screen are some of the things that I've asked ChatGPT to write in the past couple of months. This is clearly my Grange account because everything in there is generally Grange related. One of the things that recently I used ChatGPT to do was to help us rewrite the National Grange mission statement and to give us some options for mission statements. So in this prompt, the first thing that I said was write me a vision statement for the National Grange. and it gave me this big chunk of text. So I then clarified and said, in under 50 words, write a vision statement that underscores the commitment to families, service, and rural America. And it gave me that bottom half, which is one of the things that we then dropped in as an option for our delegate body that was gathered at, not just the delegate body, but for all the leaders that were at the leaders conference, as an option for a potential mission statement or part of the vision statement. One of the other things that I did, I guess it's this one. So we then, as a group, when writing this mission statement, we were given 9, 10, 12 options of different mission statements. So I asked it to distill all of the mission statements that we were given into one single mission statement. So it's a combination of the mission statement, single words, sustainability, community service, fraternity, enrichment, these ideas that we talk about when we talk about the Grange. And it gave me, oh, I guess it was for the vision statement. It gave me this long vision statement, which was part of what we ended up using in the current vision statement, which, if you don't know what our current vision statement is, nationalgrange.org/vision, I think will get you there, for our new mission and vision statement for the National Grange. I'm just gonna drop that in there for you. But so Chris, what was your specific question? Was asking it to be more flowery or more plain, right?
Yeah, I mean, does it learn that I have some favorite words, right? That I
I
like.
think it will. As you work with it in your account, it can learn the things that you say. Now, one of the other things that you can do is say, start a new prompt here. Let's see, write an editorial about the Grange's importance in agriculture, including the phrase grassroots activism, and what's something else we want to put in there? Actually, how about instead of it, we'll just drop it down to a paragraph. Grassroots activism and rural connections. And let's see what it gives us. So the Grange, established in 1867, holds a pivotal role in the narrative of American agriculture, serving as a beacon of grassroots activism and fostering vital rural connections. It already took care of the prompt right there. Emerging during a time of agricultural upheaval, the Grange swiftly became a bastion for farmers seeking solidarity and empowerment. Through its advocacy efforts, it spearheaded legislative reforms, championing fair practices and equitable policies that shaped the agricultural landscape. Moreover, the Grange's community-centric ethos facilitated the exchange of knowledge and resources among rural inhabitants, bolstering local economies and fortifying the social fabric of farming communities. Its enduring legacy underscores the enduring significance of grassroots activism and the enduring importance of rural connections and sustainable agricultural prosperity. So one problem I noticed, and one of the pitfalls, is that you really need to clean up its language sometimes. The fact that it used the word enduring 3 times in that last sentence is probably a problem. But it can give you a great starting point. So then what I can do is I might say, rewrite that at a 4th grade reading level. Let's see what it gives me. The Grange, started in 1867, is really important for farming in America. It helps farmers work together and make their voices heard. They talk about what's fair for farmers and help make laws to protect them. The Grange also helps farmers connect with each other in rural areas so they can share ideas and support each other. It's like a big team helping farmers and making sure they do well. That kind of sounds like a 4th grade history book. like their version, the very simplest version of what it could be. It wouldn't surprise me if some people are using ChatGPT or similar things to write history books these days, because the machine learning, the artificial intelligence is able to scour the internet, scour the history of man, essentially, to bring together the vital pieces that it needs to grab. So then to answer, right, Barbara, you're right. The vision statement is great, but AI didn't come close. You're right. It was just a starting point. It was a spot for us to jump in and gather some information. Typically, what I use ChatGPT for is to get an idea, to say, hey, here's where I don't have a starting paragraph. I don't have a real starting idea. I know what I kind of want to say, but I don't know where to go. So I'll use generative AI, usually ChatGPT, to say, give me that starting point. Give me the first couple words, the first couple paragraphs, and then I'll edit it and it will give me the place to begin and give me the ideas. So especially on days when I'm hitting writer's block, which happens more than I really want to admit, it's a great place for me to start. And then it gathers its facts from all over the internet, from the history of man. It's able to kind of read a ton of things. It can't read an article directly, but it will kind of gather the general idea of what's written about things. The other thing that I've lately been loving ChatGPT for, and one of the great things that you can use generative AI for, is taking care of some of the repetitive or dull tasks that we have to do frequently in communications that aren't that fun and take up more time than you want to admit. For example, writing Facebook posts. For those of us who are in charge of social media, writing Facebook posts can be exhausting because it takes a while for you to wordsmith it right and make it sound like it's your voice or the voice that you've established for your Grange. I've talked about that in other Zooms before, is establishing who you are and what you sound like as an organization and your specific Grange. So one of the things that I asked it to do earlier today was to write me 10 Facebook posts about Grange Month from the National Grange, incorporating the hashtag Grange Strong. And the first one is where we hit a pitfall because it says March is Grange Month. Let's celebrate the vibrant community spirit and rural heritage that makes us hashtag Grange Strong, hashtag Grange Month, hashtag rural pride. First problem there is March is not Grange Month. April's Grange Month. So you kind of have to feed it these things sometimes. But what it did was it gave me 10 options, because that's what I asked it to do, that now I can look at, grab the one that sounds the best and run with it. Facebook itself has started implementing this on certain Facebook profiles already. As I was on the buy nothing page for my town the other day. I'm sure many of your towns have such a page, like a free giveaway page. I was giving something away and I posted, like, uploaded the picture, and it's like added a prompt that was like, do you want to use AI to describe this image of what you're selling? And I said no, because I didn't want to see what it was going to describe or how it was going to describe it. But it was a weird prompt to me. I also use Hootsuite to pre-schedule our posts, and they also can AI generate your posts for you, which is really cool and can be really helpful, but they're not always correct. So that's one of the things that I want to encourage everyone to do, is to double check the work of AI, if that makes sense.
It seems like it could really save you a lot of time just to get that starting off point. Because when I do a Facebook post, I can sit there for half an hour trying to think of how I'm going to say it.
Right.
And a simple search would go, boom, now just edit it.
Well, and we can make this even cleaner. So we can say, write a Facebook post for the National Grange for Grange Month, highlighting the importance of X. And like, if your Grange wanted every day to highlight a different facet of the Grange, or every week, you could say, like, write me 4 posts about education, write me 3 about agriculture and the Grange. Those kind of things are really simple ways. I also love that it's in the past year or so has started incorporating emojis into what it's garnering and what it's creating, because it couldn't read those whenever ChatGPT was first created. I also asked it then in the same kind of thread here to write me 10 tweets about the importance of mental health in rural America from the National Grange. So the one thing that it automatically knows is that tweets can't be more than, 240 characters right now, or 280. So it knows that they have to be short and concise. It also knows that what some of the trending hashtags are, so you don't have to spend any time sorting out what the best hashtags to add to your tweets are. For those who don't know, hashtags are great ways on social media, specifically on Twitter. While they work on Facebook, they are much better on Twitter and Instagram. For people who are working in the same sphere or writing about the same things to find your content as well. So one of the things, of course, that National Grange is focused on right now, or that we were partnered with, is mental health in rural America. So I asked it to write me these 10 tweets. Whether I use them or not, we'll see. But I just wanted to see what kinds of things it could write for me. I encourage you all to jump in and play. I call this, technically it's called black box AI, because it works within these very specific constraints and you can't see where it's coming from. I like to call it sandbox AI, because it's like jumping into a sandbox, because anything that you kind of write or draw in the sand can easily be washed away. And it doesn't have to last forever. So these are some things that we've done with ChatGPT. Oh, I asked draft 10 tweets about Women's History Month from the National Grange, including the importance of the right to vote, women's history in the Grange, and inclusion. Knowing that that's a big part of our history, is that women were part of our history. So, of course, Women's History Month was last month, but I just wanted to see what it could do as I keep playing with it and tweaking things. We talked earlier about resolutions. I don't have. Oh, there it is. So I asked it, and I saw Ann Bircher was on. So when I was out in Minnesota as their national rep last year, I actually passed this on to John Crippen, their vice president, to present on the floor, just for fun, knowing that it wasn't going to go anywhere and they couldn't really pass a resolution that I wrote anyway. So I wanted it to write a resolution encouraging the National Grange to petition the U.S. government to make Election Day a federal holiday. And this is the one that gave me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 whereases. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separate resolves. So while it knows what a resolution is, and it's able to distill some of the National Grange's standpoints and things that we work on, and understanding the reasoning behind it, it is a little wordy. So sometimes you have to be very specific with it. But I think it's, now I'm a nerd and I will fully admit that, but I think it's so neat that it understands this and understands this process and understands even who the Grange is. So are there any questions about ChatGPT right now? And we can come back and play some more, or if you want me to try to feed it a prompt, I'm happy to show you how it works still, and we can play around.
Is it a free app?
Yes. So ChatGPT is free. Some of the AI that I'll talk about later has paid portions of it, but ChatGPT, as I use it, is totally free. So some of the other pitfalls, I talked about that it has fake data sometimes and can make fake claims. I also, one of the things that it doesn't do is edit itself well. So it will have these repetitive phrases. I mean, one time I handed, at the leaders conference, I handed Chris an option for a vision statement and had the same phrase, I think, in 4 separate paragraphs. And Chris is like, what is this? What's happening? Why are we repeating this? And I was like, oh, sorry, that's ChatGPT. And I didn't catch it. And it took another person to look at. We're going to talk about AI generated art here in a second, which has even more pitfalls. than AI generated text. But in general, we have to remember that technology is not a replacement for people and is not a replacement for actual research. So if you're asking it to write something that requires very specific knowledge, it's still on you as the author to ensure that what you're putting out is factually correct. Or else you could end up, being sued again, like the lawyers in New York. Edit it for grammar and phrasing because it's not always the great. And some other things you have to watch is that it has the potential to pull copyrighted material. It's gotten better since 2022 on that, but it does have the potential to pull text straight out of things. So if something feels like it's a little too neat or a little too clean, just double check that text. There's also an inherent bias in ChatGPT and in AI in general, and that because it's scouring the history of man, history of humankind is generally written by men, white men, Christian white men. So there is an inherent bias, especially in history things, that can sneak its way in there. So just double checking that you're not unintentionally being offensive or unintentionally leaning a certain direction if you're not intending to do that. And that's just because the majority of history was written that way, and the majority of the internet is written that way, that it's the data that it's grabbing. So ensuring that you're doing your best to present an unbiased, inoffensive, sure, presentation is really important too. Okay, any other questions here? Okay, so I'm gonna back out of here. And I'm going to open a very important image for you and share that with you now. How many of you remember seeing this image in, I think it was probably about the spring of 2022, the Pope in a puffy coat? Does anybody remember seeing this? So this set of images came out, and everybody was like, oh, that's a really stylish coat you got there, Pope. Like, this is a really new modern interpretation of the Pope. Look, he's holding a coffee cup. This is really cool. Until you notice some things that aren't right about it. For example, the way he's holding that coffee cup with like just the nubs of his fingers. There are some other things that are just not right here. That's not the one on the left. That looks like the Pope's face. The one on the right, not quite the right face going on there. The coat seems different. There are some weird things going on here. And then it was revealed that this is an artificial intelligence created image that was put into some prompt. There was another one that was put out a couple months later. I think it was right around, actually, it might have been before the 2020 election, that showed President Trump kneeling in a church. That was also an artificial intelligence created picture. And there were just some weird things that you have to watch out for. I don't think this is the one, but there is another one that like somebody had 6 fingers in. I sent one. I was playing around in another thing earlier today that I'll show you here in a second. But I was playing around because Kate Middleton's been in the middle of, the news lately. And so I asked it to create an AI image of Kate Middleton. And it looked really pretty. It showed this image of Kate Middleton kneeling in a garden. It was really cute until I zoomed in on her hands, and she clearly had 4 thumbs because it was like intertwined among itself. So there is this habit now of people using artificial intelligence to create images that look really real until you start noticing some inaccuracies. And that's because ChatGPT, or OpenAI, in this case, OpenArt, doesn't understand certain elements or understand why things have to be a certain way. It doesn't have the human brain behind it to correct itself in those ways. So one of the things we as consumers have to be really careful of, and then we as content creators have to be careful of, is putting out images that look a little too real or that show real people in situations that they wouldn't be in or can really distort the truth. There's also the habit now of creating deep fakes, which have even tricked the news. Deep fakes are videos or audio that purport to be something that they're not, that show people in situations, because AI now has the habit and the ability to listen to somebody's voice and feed that voice back saying things that it would never say, which is insane and crazy. So protecting ourselves and protecting our consumers and the people who work with us through the Grange is one of the things that I think we have to be really careful of. That's why I always say check the sources when it comes to news articles, depending where you're getting your news from, making sure that you are doing your best as a consumer to protect yourself. Correct, Barbara. This art has been going on for a long time. Yeah, AI does make it easier for everyone to do. You're absolutely right. And there was another one. As I've been researching for this, I found somebody used DALL-E to create a version of the Sistine Chapel that had a cherub holding a piece of cheese pizza. Because why not? So it looked almost like the top of the Sistine Chapel until you looked at the details and you were like, oh, there's just something. Well, the cheese pizza, of course, is wrong. But it's using technology to do things that it's not meant to do necessarily. Now, what we're going to do tonight, I'm going to show you, hopefully, some ways that we can use it for good. But I also want to show you one of the pitfalls here. So one of the things that I did today was in a website called OpenArt, which is also free, and allows you to create imagery. And this is, so if you're working on a project and you need a very specific image, I encourage you to try to do some of these things and see if they work for you. We'll talk about Canva a little bit later and the artificial intelligence portions of Canva, which is one of my favorite websites ever. But today I found OpenArt because I haven't really played around with these things much. So I fed it, every time you feed OpenArt a prompt, it will give you 2 images to match that prompt. So the very first prompt I fed it was, give me the Grange emblem on a barn. And it gave me this. So AI does not understand what the Grange emblem is as far as OpenArt. This looks like it might actually be the crest of a country. Chris, this might actually be your new emblem. And then the second one it gave me here was the Grange. Still not quite understanding what I was asking for on this one. So I refined it and I said National Grange logo on a barn, putting National Grange logo in quotes, hoping that it would be able to find that image online or something similar to it. I don't know what this is, but the National Grange, and then something at the bottom. I'm not really sure what it says there. And then the second one it gave me was whatever this is, which this could be a fun new emblem for us, I think, right? So I was like, okay, so maybe our emblem is not that recognizable. So then I asked it to give me the FFA emblem or the FFA logo on a barn. So it got the FFA's colors right. It found the blue and gold, but not the actual emblem. And I think that might be Russian that it's written in there. And then it gave me this one, which is the Federafrina Natcoin. So definitely not what I was looking for. So this is one of the pitfalls of AI, is that it doesn't really understand certain things, and especially things that are, it won't necessarily reproduce recognizable images. So, oh, I don't want to upgrade. I do want to.
You have to put the word America in there, and you probably are right. AI is all over the world and
Right.
it's equal.
So let me see if I can go create. So let's try. And it takes about 30 seconds to give me a prompt. So in that 30 seconds, while it's doing this, I wouldn't recommend you ever use this kind of AI in your advertising. This to me is more just for fun, to see what it can do and what it's capable of, and maybe eventually it will learn to catch up and produce better images. I'll show you in Canva here because they do have some AI things that are better to use because they present more cartoony styles and not trying to look like human things. Okay, so this time it gave me future famers of America. So it's still not quite grabbing the prompt, and the second one is still processing here. It did pick up America, Barbara. It gave me the American flag on that one. This one still. So what it doesn't do well apparently in OpenArt is text in general. I think we got the closest there in the middle with farmers, just missing the E in it. That's a really cute horse though on it. So one of the downsides, especially in OpenArt, is that it hasn't caught up to where text is by any means as far as generative AI. This one didn't give me, because I wasn't looking for people, didn't give me any, 6 fingers, didn't give me 2 heads, anything like that. But it just doesn't always understand the way that people work. So I'm going to jump to Canva really quickly. Many of you have heard me talk about Canva. If you don't know Canva, it has free elements that you can use for your Grange for creating advertisements, et cetera, et cetera. I did 2 whole Zooms on this back in 2022 and 2023. So feel free to check out the National Grange YouTube channel to find more about Canva. But over the past couple of years, it has started some AI apps within it. So on the left toolbar, there is a section called apps. And as you scroll down here, there's a whole section of AI powered prompts that you can use, or AI powered imagery that you can use. So one of the things I talked about earlier was Dolly. And you're able to use the Dolly prompt directly on here, and it will allow you to use those things. But the one that I like using, where did it go? It's just called AI Magic. And AI Image Gen. That's one that I was using earlier. So somebody give me a random prompt. Don't be shy.
How about questions to an agricultural interview?
Okay, so this one's for art, not for text, Garrett. That would be a good one for text.
Sorry.
Nope, you're good.
They're riding a surfboard through a forest.
What's riding a surfboard through a forest?
A panda riding a surfboard in a
I
forest.
should have known. That's your usual. And we're going to see what it gives us. Takes anywhere from 10 to 30 seconds here. I did ask it earlier today. I just wanted to see, give me an image of a crowded restaurant. Okay, so here we go. A panda riding a surfboard through a forest. Now, obviously, this kind of image, I think we would recognize as AI created right away. But I think you'll see more and more that in still advertising, in image-based advertising, AI is becoming the norm in creating imagery. Which one of the pitfalls of AI is that it's going to end up putting artists out of work. This kind of image is great because it's something that we wouldn't necessarily be able to create on our own. It's not something I would necessarily use. Again, it's more for fun. I do love the detail in this one, and it has a constant artwork style, which is not always the case either in AI generated art. One of the ones that I looked up earlier was And every time you put in a prompt, I could put in the panda prompt again, and it would give me a totally different image, which I think is really cool too. So if you're looking for something specific, or you're trying to create something and you have an image in mind, you can keep feeding it the same prompt or tweaking details about it. So we could even say panda on red surfboard in forest, and let's see what it does this time. But I gave it one earlier that I might actually use in an ad or in one of our social media posts. I was looking for a barn in the fall, and just wanted to see what it would give me, and it was a really cute image. So this one, it went on a totally different art style from what we had before. So now we've got just a cute little panda sitting on a red surfboard in a forest. He's not actually surfing, but he's there. He's doing his thing. So you could keep tweaking these things until you find an image that you want to use as your background, as a portion of your whatever you're creating. One of the things you again have to watch out for is that people have found copyrighted art in the things that AI is creating because it's pulling from people's styles, and sometimes then ending up pulling full images in from that other people have created. So again, just be careful. But if you're doing something like
so how do you know that it's copyrighted?
just have to use your, I mean, I think in Canva you're probably safe, because
right.
it knows better. Like Canva's prompts have been given those kind of things. But it's a great question, and sometimes you just have to use your best judgment. And if something looks too professional or too real, to say, I don't know that this is the best thing for me to use right now.
Okay.
Generally,
like with words, typically it's pretty easy to kind of figure out that it's copyrighted, but with images, I feel like that's a lot harder.
It is. No, you're absolutely right. This one I could tell you right off is not going to be copyrighted because of some of the weird details happening on this barn. I'm not sure quite what's happening here, but it answered my prompt, gave me a red barn in the fall. And then there are some odd things about this. It's still cute, and if I was using it as the background of a picture, I would probably blur it down a little bit anyway, so some of those odd details wouldn't be as noticeable. But this is one of those times where you need to use your best judgment and what's doable. I haven't used all of these AI-based things in here. I encourage you that if you have a Canva account, most of these are available in the free version of Canva as well, because I jumped into my free Canva to see what was there this afternoon. So I encourage you to jump in and play and see what it can do and challenge it. AI learns from us using it as well. So the more that people are jumping in and asking it to refine itself, the better it's going to do, which is both a pro and a con, in my opinion, because it's going to get better at replicating human artwork, or it's going to get better at replicating human text. So we just need to watch out for what it's saying. So Carolyn, you said you use Magic Write, correct?
Yeah, it's one of the ones I use.
Okay. Magic Write. Why is it not coming up for me today? Oh, never mind. I'm not in the right kind of thing. I need to start with text, don't I? How do you use it? I don't think I've used Magic Write, Carolyn. Can you give us a quick primer online?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I start with paragraph or what, the text box.
Yep.
And then you gotta go into it, and I'm gonna type in a narwhal. Oh, come on, to actually type for me. A narwhal swimming in a space desert.
Okay.
Okay, and then when I click off the box, and I click back on it to select it,
Okay.
Magic Write pops up in the top, like where you can group things or delete things. That's that little pop-up box you get.
You want to share your screen quickly for us? Can you do that?
You're asking me to do something.
Sorry, I put in my communication fellow on the spot.
That one. Share. Okay. So
There we go.
I've got my text box here. And when I pick it, I can click on Magic Write and I go continue writing, summarizing, rewrite. Okay, let's make that more fun. What's more fun than a narwhal swimming in a space desert? I don't know. A narwhal gliding through a cosmic desert. That does sound more. I can go rewrite and it'll rewrite in the same thread. A narwhal gracefully drifting through a celestial desert. Wow, that's a good one. Let's add some sprinkle fairy dust on it. A majestic narwhal gliding through a celestial desert with ethereal grace. That's pretty fairy dusty to me.
It is. Okay, I get it. So that's pretty cool. That was one that I haven't really played with before.
I use that a lot when I'm not sounding eloquent.
Awesome. Okay, you want to stop sharing? I'm going to show 2 other things.
Yep.
So there are 2 apps that I would challenge you to start using. Now, this is not so much generative AI. This is part of the markup and editing. The one that I absolutely love and have a like 300-week streak with is an app called Grammarly. So Grammarly.com. So Grammarly is also AI. You can use it for free. You can buy the pro version, which is not that expensive, really. So what Grammarly does is that it will clean up your text and clean up your writing, and you can install it as an app on your computer so that every time that I open Microsoft Word, I open email, I open any website that I'm typing something into, it starts giving me corrections. So what we have here is actually Amanda Brazana Rios, our Membership and Leadership Development Director, wrote an article for Good Day. So as I was editing it, I threw it into Grammarly to say, hey, you do some of this editing for me so I don't have to read the whole thing. So it gives things like it checks your spelling, first of all. It checks your grammar. It checks your clarity. And in the pro version, it even checks how engaging your writing is, and it checks your delivery. Since I'm on the free version, these are 50 other corrections that it would like to give me that aren't essential to correcting what I'm writing. But it's like, if you really want to punch it up and make it the best it can possibly be, let's talk about some of these things. So Grammarly, it's also a phone app that you can use it on your phone now. And I really like it because as I'm typing, it works for me right away. In the pro version, it does have a generative AI function where it will say, do you want me to finish the sentence for you? Or let me make some word suggestions for you. Those kind of things that it can do. Some of the word suggestions it will do in the free version as well. I know Carolyn, when she writes for me, won't hand this in until it has an overall score of over 95. She will keep cleaning it up and keep cleaning it up.
About it.
So there are other things. So again, I throw a bunch of things in here to use. I sometimes what Grammarly won't do is it won't write a full paragraph for you. It won't do those kinds of things for you, but it is really great at cleaning up the things that you've already written. And in that same way, there's another one called Hemingway app, which is also free. Hemingway app does a lot of the same things. Hemingway is more designed for polished writing, for things like essays or articles or editorials, those kind of things, rather than just general writing. But Hemingway is great for if you've written something for your newsletter, for something more formal, and you want it to judge it and you want some clarifications. It's really good at that. So it has set parameters of adverbs. It doesn't like that Hemingway, because it's more scholarly writing or more news writing, doesn't like adverbs for some reason, which is fine. That's the standard. It has the option to give you simpler voice and say, let's make this more readable. Let's make it not as challenging. It will correct your passive voice. So if you want to be the more readable you want something to be, the more active you want it to be. So instead of saying, Of course, instead of saying will be as passive, is as active, which is strange to think of, and it took me a long time to learn. It's hard to explain, but it will help correct those kinds of things for you. Hemingway's also free. I really love it. And then I showed you Canva AI, which is great to use and pretty simple and easy, to help you kind of punch up your social media game. And as Grangers and the things that we're working on, I don't expect that any of us are going to be using generative AI to be creating long form videos. I don't expect that we'll be using it to create heavy audio, although there are audio AI apps that are also free. So if you're looking for background music for something that you're doing, it's a possibility that you could go find an audio AI to say, I need a 30-second clip of a samba, or I need a 30-second clip of something that sounds vaguely rock, vaguely Hispanic. Like, depending on what you're doing, it could create these things for you, and it will blend different music genres together for you. For what we're doing simple things through ChatGPT, asking it to write you Facebook posts, asking it to give you prompts for editorials, or what Garrett suggested earlier, asking ChatGPT to give you questions that you might be asked in an interview about ag, which sounds like something that Garrett might have gone through a couple times last week, when he was down on Capitol Hill. So these are kinds of things that we can use generative AI for, that will help punch up our materials. Anyone have any questions, concerns, thoughts?
I have a comment.
Mm-hmm.
When I use it, it doesn't sound like me. So
Okay.
when I do it to my people, I don't do it to my people because they don't believe it's me.
They know that you haven't written it, right? So, and that's one thing that I bet if you fed ChatGPT or some of these things enough of the things that you have written, to let it learn your style, that it will eventually get there. And I think it has to be, and you might not want it to do that.
Too much work. Too much work.
Which is totally fair. I did ask it to write something, and to do a compare and contrast in different styles, to say, like, I want this to be a formal version, I want this to be an informal version. My pastor once sent me her sermon because I wanted to read it after she had given it in church, and then I threw her whole sermon in ChatGPT to ask it to summarize it for me, because there were some things that didn't make sense. And so I threw her whole thing in, and then it gave me like a 2-paragraph summary of what this is about. And that was really cool too, because that's one thing that, if you are confused about a New York Times article, because they like using really big words, then you can throw it in to say, like, please summarize this for me, or write this in a less formal style, which I think is really neat.
I do use it for the newspapers.
Do you? That's awesome.
When I put something.
So when you're submitting things, yeah, that's great. I think there was one of those in my Grammarly had something that I had submitted to a paper. Any other questions or concerns? Thoughts?
So I have a question, but it's not related to the AI stuff.
That's fine, Brianna. I'll take any questions.
You had made a comment earlier that you use Hootsuite to plan your Facebook posts.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason you do that instead of the business suite?
So I use Hootsuite because I can use it across Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter all at the same time.
Okay, that makes sense. Because with the business suite, you can only do Facebook and Instagram.
I also don't like Meta, so they provide for me.
That makes sense. Okay, I was wondering because I do this not only with the Grange but also with our local high school, and so I'm just trying to get an idea of scheduling these out and trying to figure out the best way to do that. So we used to use Hootsuite at work. That was what we used to do, and I don't do that part of the job anymore, so they might still be using it, but I just thought that was interesting that you did that. So
Yeah, Hootsuite, for those that don't know, it's a social media scheduling tool. It also allows me to see all the comments that come in across all of our pages in one location. So I'm not constantly like bouncing back and forth between social media during the day, or else I'd go really crazy. I'm only halfway there right now. But recently they introduced something called Owly, which is, I believe, ow.ly within their frame, and Owly is their own answer to AI and allows them to write. And of course, they're working on the nocturnal animal thing on Hootsuite. So Owly is their AI function too, which is really cool. Not always right, but interesting to use and see what their suggestions are though. So I can click on a prompt right in there as I'm working. It might say today is Purim, which was yesterday, I think, or Sunday. And it will write a couple options for Facebook posts for Purim. It would do the same for this coming Sunday for Easter of different suggested Facebook posts to use. So if you're really burnt out and need to schedule your Grange's social media, I suggest looking at some AI tools for you. Maybe not to do it all, but at least to give you a starting point. Okay, well, this was again, I am not an AI expert. I will say that I'm learning as more things are being introduced into the world. But it's definitely something that I'm watching and I'm learning more about, because it is going to be important in the future, and it's important now, to watch what we are writing and to watch how we're saying things and to see how we are lining up um, with current content. So I encourage you guys to play around in it. I encourage you to try to see what you can write with it, and to challenge it to do something unexpected for you. See what it can do that you don't have time for. Um, Chris, you can use it. See if you can use it to write your president's address for national session. See what it gives you. uh, and see what kind of things that it knows and what it doesn't know. It will get better with time, and it is the cutting edge of technology right now, especially generative AI. But AI is also being used in agriculture all the time, not just what Carolyn was talking about at the beginning of the Zoom, but artificial intelligence is being used to help people plant their gardens. It's being used to help people plan out where and how to rotate crops. It's being used in milking parlors and all over, and even in like deciding what to feed your pigs for the day. So those are different ways that the AI is affecting all of us that we don't see, and it's working in the background, but it's also kind of right in our faces every day too, as far as marketing and advertising and learning who we are as people. These things that we have in our hands know more about us, I think, than we know about ourselves sometimes. So every time that you give it permission to know something about you, it's telling somebody. So it can learn more about you and feed you the best content that it can to make you a better consumer. But I also want us to be at the best of our game. And so we need to keep up with the technology as it's being introduced in order to stay relevant and to stay